saga says about gender, women's sexuality, and sexual health?
Right. Well, in terms of gender, I would say it's rather regressive.
Okay.
Very traditional roles of gender. For females, you're supposed to first fall in love, then you're supposed to get married, no sex before marriage, and as soon as you get married, you should have a child. And you should also give up college because you can't go to college and be a mother. That would be impossible. So very sort of regressive ideas in terms of femininity and the female role, really marriage and motherhood. And then in terms of masculinity, the males that are held up in the series as the desirable males are very controlling, almost hyper-masculine, very strong, very muscular, very domineering, and very possessive and controlling and even violent with the females in the series.
And that's what I was going to ask. I know there seems to be a connection between violence and sexuality. So what have you found around that?
Right, so in terms of sexuality, the series is often called abstinence porn. It kind of drips with sex, but no sex ever really happens. So there's desire around sex, but you're not supposed to have sex before marriage. So there's a definite abstinence message. And in particular, the female of the series, Bella, is held up as the one that's responsible for not getting the males too excited. And she's sort of the policer of chastity.
So the responsibility is put on her.
The responsibility is put on her. The other thing is that there's this equation with sex and death. Because she's attracted to a vampire and a werewolf, both of who are supernaturally strong and could kill her very easily. So the idea is if you turn them on or you get too involved, your life is at risk. So there's this equation with sex equaling death for females.
Yikes. What about in terms of the importance of how these messages are showing up? And one I'm thinking specifically is, what about, because I know if you look at our rates of STD and pregnancy compared to other countries, there's a big difference. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that happens with sexuality in the novel is there's lots of desire, but there's no serious conversations around sex. And there's, you will be damned if you have sex or you will die. But there's nothing about contraception or sexual health or what a healthy relationship is. In fact, Edward is quite abusive. On their first night, their first honeymoon night, Bella ends up black and blue the morning after because he's so strong and he's holding on to her so tightly. And this is framed as very hot and exciting rather than as some sort of sexual violence.
And didn't one of them black out with that also? Is that right, or didn't have memories of that?
Right, so she wakes up and she's in this, post-coital euphoria. Meanwhile, she's completely black and blue and supposedly doesn't realize that she's black and blue until she looks in the mirror. And then when she looks in the mirror, she calls the bruises decorations. And that they are, him decorating her with his love. So this sort of blurring of sexuality and violence and sex being dangerous. And then what you were saying about STIs and teen pregnancies, it is a series that's hugely popular with teens and young people. And there's no emphasis on that these types of violent relationships are unhealthy. In fact, they're held up as desirable. There's never a discussion of contraception, and she does end up pregnant, of course, the night